Everyone is familiar with the economic concept of inflation, right? It's where you buy a product, you get the same product as what you used to get, but now it just costs more. It's inflated. The price has gone up. Everybody knows it. We deal with it all the time. There's also a slightly more modern concept called shrinkflation. It's where these companies have figured out people are getting angry that the price of a pair of pants used to be $40, now it's $50. So what do? They save a little bit. They skimp a little bit. They hold back on some materials. Maybe they don't put as much into them as what they used to. And then there's a third area. It's really modern. They're talking about it all over the place. It's called in-poopification. But they don't use the word poop, and you can figure out what word they use for.
What word do they use, Diesel?
It rhymes with quit.
Is this Economics 101?
It is. This is high-level stuff.
I thought I graduated college.
3,000 level class here. We're having on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. The in-poopification is where a product gets cheaper and worse, but we're all forced to accept it anyway. So we're still paying the same amount, but the product we're getting is worse than it used to be. And that's what's about to happen, Cole, because it seems imminent, as in they were meeting on it yesterday and today, which will lead to the in-poopification of the NCAA March Madness tournament. Pat Forty has an article up right now on SportsIllustrated.com talking about exactly this.
So to dumb it down, it is ordering the same chicken sandwich that you've been ordering for the past 10 years. However, the chicken sandwich now is significantly smaller. When you talk
that's shrinkflation.
Okay, shrinkflation.
So imagine you go to a restaurant and you buy a steak sandwich.
Yeah.
And it says USDA Prime steak sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
And it says artisanal bread, brioche bun. And you come back the next day, and now it's like third-rate beef.
I gotcha. I'm with you. Yeah.
And it's Wonder Bread. No hate on Wonder Bread, because a lot of us grew up on Wonder Bread. I'm just saying, it's not the same product. They've made it worse, but you're still expected to pay for it anyway. They've cut costs.
Yeah.
And they've made it worse, but they still expect us to just take it.
On that note, before we get into the actual basketball, did you see where that kind of happened in Charleston over the past few months with the shrimp? Have you seen that?
Sorry, I haven't.
I
pay attention to beef prices, not shrimp prices.
So there are 25 Charleston restaurants that have been accused and sued over alleged shrimp fraud. So kind of similar to what you're saying, they told the customers all these years, you're getting fresh shrimp, but guess what? They weren't getting fresh shrimp. 25 businesses in Charleston, Diesel, have been sued over that. So a little bit similar to the story that you're talking about there with a steak sandwich. By the way, who eats a steak sandwich? I don't want my steak and bread combined.
What? Steak sandwiches are delicious.
No, I want the steak separate from the bread.
It's not that kind of a steak. It's not like an inch thick steak. You should have a Cuban steak sandwich. It'll change your life.
Like a cheese steak.
It'll change your life. It's very thin. You put all this other stuff on it. It's delicious. But then you go back the next day, and it's just ground beef.
I'm with you. Yeah.
So Pat Forty has this article up right now on SportsIllustrated.com. You can go find it, read it for yourself. That says we are now heading for an expanded 72 or 76 team NCAA tournament. And some people might say, well, isn't that good? Isn't more basketball a good thing? No. When it's specifically designed to get the worst teams in the major conferences in, those that were sitting on the outside looking in, it's designed to get them in because whoever it may be, if you're talking about the ACC, maybe it's Georgia Tech, maybe it's Virginia Tech, maybe it's Boston College. They were the 6th and 7th best teams in a conference that only got 5 teams into the tournament this year. That's who Pat Forty expects will benefit from these changes.
Yeah,
it's not designed to get the Furman who lost in a buzzer beater in a phenomenal game. They just had an amazing season. They lose in a buzzer beater in the Southern Conference tournament. They're really good. They could go beat somebody in the NCAA tournament. It's not designed to get them in.
It's not, but I will say, I guess in this conversation, Diesel, you and I today are speaking to the same people that we had the conversation with during football season when it comes to expanding the college football playoff. We're speaking to the same people today on this Thursday that don't understand expansion and how it works. And I don't know how many times last year in 2024 I said behind this microphone that when you allow more teams in that aren't as good, that the end result's going to be the same. So I kind of view this situation maybe the same of expansion. You know, what is the end goal here? Is the result at the end going to change?
I'm a little less worried about inflation of the college football playoff because it's so brand new. We had the 4-year playoff for how many years? 9 years, 10 years or so. We had the expanded 12-team playoff for 1. And then they're expanding it to 14 or 16 or wherever this thing may go. I'm not as worried about it because I think there is a case to be made for trial and error. The problem is, as we all know, once you expand to make more money, there's no going back.
Yeah.
There's no like, hey, we raised the NCAA tournament to 128 teams, but that sucked. Let's go back to 64. They're not going to do that. They're never going to do that because they can sell it to more TV networks. Somebody will carry it. Somebody will pay these conferences. And that's just where we are from this point going forward. So yesterday and today, the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Committee is meeting on and is expected to decide whether to expand the tournament field from 68 to 72 or 76. Most people in the know believe that the decision will absolutely be made to expand.
So it's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening. And I'm sitting here, I'm literally reading the article with you on Sports Illustrated. And the next part of the article is the one or the next sentence is kind of what stands out to me the most. You say it's happening, but what's the big but? The next sentence, Diesel, says nobody can find a groundswell of popular support that would justify it.
Nobody can find it from the fan perspective. But from the suits, the guys that wear suits that cost more than yours and my car payments, those guys love these ideas. They love the ideas. And a little bit later on in this article, he does say that all of this is coming from conference leaders who have had backdoor conversations with TV networks who are willing to pay more money.
It's all about
for the product, right? So the money is already there. It's kind of like that line from Jurassic Park. If you ever saw Jurassic Park, the first one, it's really the only one worth watching because let's be real.
You like the new one?
No, I haven't seen it yet, but all the other Jurassic Parks after that. I mean, they're big, shiny dinosaurs.
That I've seen
cool,
that you
but they're not great
what a
movies.
Shocking,
they're not
news.
Great movies. Yeah. They're visual spectacles, great, but they're not great movies. Jeff Goldblum in Jurassic Park, and I quote him all the time, part of baked into my DNA, said you were so worried about whether or not you could, you never stopped to ask if you should. And that's where this expansion of the NCAA tournament to whether it be 72 or 76 or 74, that's where they are. They were so worried about whether or not they could get the financing, get some TV networks willing to pay, a couple extra $1 million to carry a couple of games, that they never stopped to ask, should we expand this thing? And it's the big time conference commissioners who inevitably are going to act in their own self-interest and push the committee, hey, can we get our 7 and 8 teams in this tournament? Like, I know that they finished below 500, but like, come on, Boston College is a brand. Wouldn't you love to get some more eyeballs in the Boston market? Georgia Tech is a brand. Wouldn't you love to get some more eyeballs in the Atlanta market? Instead of saying these teams had a 40-some-odd game regular season schedule to finish above 500, and they couldn't do it. Yeah. They don't deserve to get in. Meanwhile, you got the 2025 win, Southern Conference, Sun Belt, Conference USA, whoever it may be, good basketball teams, really good basketball teams getting snubbed.
I think what we have to realize, and even myself, Diesel, as we talk about this and think about it and may or may not like it, the concept, what we have to remember is that in these meetings where the suits, to your point, are discussing the money that's being left on the table, they're looking at the dollar figures that's being left on the table. And I don't know exactly how these meetings are operated and how they're ran, Diesel, but I will say I think the one thing that we all have to, I guess, wrap our minds around is the fact that all of the things that you just said when it comes to teams not making it that deserve to get in, or teams toward the bottom of the conference that don't really have a good conference record, or teams that, really don't, just plain and simple, don't deserve to be there, when it all boils down to it, those guys or women in those conference or in those rooms, in those meetings, they don't care about any of that. The only thing they care about is, from a business standpoint, if you are owning a business and sitting and seeing what money is left on the table, they don't want money left on the table. And I think what we all have to remember is that what their interests are not even remotely close to what our, and I say our meaning fans, interests are. They're two completely totally different interest at heart.
We are on completely different wavelengths from people who wear expensive suits. We don't think the way that they do. They don't think the way that we do. They're not all about increasing the competition level. They're thinking about, how can we get more? How can we get more money? How can we get more power? How can we get more screen time? How do we get more for our conference? See, there's no czar of college basketball either, who's out there trying to push this thing for the good of all of college basketball. They're not looking there and saying, hey, look at that SoCon down there. They're a really, really good conference, and they always push out 2 or 3 teams that could win a game in the NCAA tournament, but they're a traditionally one-bid league. They're not saying, hey, what can we do to help them?
They're
thinking, what can we do to help ourselves with the Big 10, the Big 12, the SEC, the ACC.
Yeah, and Diesel, while we are on different wavelengths, and while we're in 2 totally different rooms, and while we have different interests at heart when it comes to the people making these decisions compared to us as fans, what I do find fascinating is what Pat Forty points out in this article is he says, look, if there were a group, if there was a czar, if there were someone, right, that was guiding college sports, the following things would be true. And Pat Forty goes on to list. The Pac-12 would still be alive. There would have been no scheming to secure multiple automatic bids for some conferences in the CFP. New rules created via federal mandate might stand a chance of functioning before stakeholders sabotage them. And last but not least, the best single competition in college sports, March Madness, would be protected and maintained in its best form, not crassly manipulated to wring a few more bucks out of the NCAA's media partners. So ultimately, if you are on the side of Pat Forty here, Diesel, you believe that this competition that we're talking about, March Madness, is the single best form of competition in college sports, and you're looking at the demise of it. You're looking at it no longer being protected.
The in-poopification of the NCAA tournament. This thing expands. We get worse teams. We get more blowouts in the first round. And we look at it, and some people will say, casuals will say, well, it's not a good product. I'm not really interested in watching this. Now, he does make an argument, a counter argument, and I want to see if you think this holds any water whatsoever. And I assume that, based on the rest of the article, that Pat probably wrote this with a massive grain of salt in mind. He says the argument for expansion is that Division I has grown by nearly 100 schools in the past 40 years. So keeping it the same size deprives access to a greater number of programs now.
That's interesting.
That's a very thin argument, but it is one to make.
What, 100 you said?
Yep.
100 in the past how many years?
40 years.
40 years. So you're looking at, and look, I don't know if that growth will continue or not, but you're looking at, 40 years, 100 schools, Diesel. I do see the side of that argument, but I also see the side of, look, well, you're saying that schools are being deprived of the opportunity. Will be better. win more games.
They are winning more games, but they're still not getting the opportunity because they are in one bid leagues.
And maybe but they're not winning enough games, right? They're not winning the game that matters.
They can only win all their games. I mean,
but I'm saying they're not winning the conference championship. If they're in a one-bid league, I guess you tell them, hey.
Do you want to reduce the entirety of the college basketball season down to a tournament in the conference tournament? I mean, that's why I think the regular season conference champ and the tournament champ deserve bids into the NCAA tournament because you've shown it over a full body of work. We talk about that in football all the time. Body of work. Resume matters, right? Mm-hmm. Resume. That is the 35, 40 some odd games you play over your regular season. That has to matter. You're saying none of that matters.
Well, look, I think ultimately we've been doing this for so long, right? We've been doing it this way for so long. I don't want to say none of it matters, but yes, there's going to be growth. Yes, there's going to be new schools added, but you've been doing it this way for so long now that it has become, to Pat's point, I believe, one of the most treasured events in all of college sports. And again, you want to expand it, that's fine. You want to open it up and allow more teams in, that's fine. But ultimately, if you do let more teams in, from the fan perspective, going back to what us fans care about, you are going to, in my mind, in my opinion, get the same result. You're going to get the same end product, right? And maybe, just maybe, one of those teams can make a wonderful Cinderella run and make a deep run into the tournament. But I think ultimately you're going to get the same product at the very end, kind of like you saw this year with, people at the very beginning of the tournament this year said, "Oh, it's not really good, not a lot of upsets." But you got down to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four champion. It's like, oh, it's great basketball. It's the best teams, right? We all have this list of wants. And sometimes the wants are contradictory of what can actually happen compared to what is going to happen.
We do want something very different from the round of 64 and then the round of 32 and beyond. In the round of 64, we want to see chaos. Mm-hmm. We want to see the small school get the upset. After that, we want to see the big brands advance, or we want to see that one crazy Cinderella story and see how far they can go. RJ on the text line, 844-326-3663, the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, says, as someone who has followed mid-major basketball closely for 10-plus years, there have been so many deserving mid-majors snubbed for subpar power conference teams that went one and done. It's a money grab in the end, which is both sad and frustrating. Yeah. It's true, RJ. Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. They're going to have to sign on new network partnerships, new platforms that will even stream this content. If you're going to add these extra games, because there's no space to squeeze these things in when you're talking about the round of 64. They're playing back to back all the time anyway. So get ready to add one more streaming partner onto this thing. Get ready to have a login and a password to another app to be able to watch more games. And that's what these suits want. They want you to pay for it. You get screwed in the end because you're the ones who have to pay for this and foot the bill for this.
Ultimately, you have to remember, going back to what I said a minute ago, Diesel, about the money. The people that are making these decisions, they're again, it's hard for us to understand because we're in the day-to-day of it. We cover the sport, we watch the sport, we love the sport. They don't follow the sport. They're not in the day-to-day, right? They see one thing and they see the dollar sign, and if they see money left on the table, they're not sitting there thinking, well, we could expand this thing, but if we do, it's really – they don't think that way. So we just got to wrap our minds around
the truth is, you hear it from people all the time. This tournament sucks now. The first round sucks. It's not worth watching. But you watched it anyway. You watched it anyway. So you still, even though you hate it, whatever it may be, the round of 12, the play-in games for the college football playoff, or the round of 64 and the play-in games to get into that, if you think it's bad basketball, guess what? You still watched it anyway. So you gave them what they wanted, which was your attention. They exposed you to advertisers. They won. And until you individually, not you, Cole, but every single one of you Tolos, if you think something stinks, turn it off and don't watch it. That's how you vote. That's how you tell them this is a bad product.
And this year, looking at the numbers, Diesel, the round of 32 saw a 3% increase from 2024. The semifinals saw a 19% increase from 2024. The championship game saw a 22% increase from 2024, which is the largest since 2019. And the tournament altogether, the average saw a 3% increase, matching or slightly improving record trend with 10.2 million viewers. It was the most early round interest in over 30 years. Think about that. So, again, we all going back to what we want. A solid bracket, no major upsets. What'd that produce? The best early round interest in years. Think about that. So people are still watching.
What does that really tell us? That the tournament's too damn big and we could shrink this thing back down to 32 and not lose anything.
Tells me that people really don't want to see the upsets. And like the average fan out there, like I had conversations with people in March about it, like, oh, a lot of upsets, but I think those are the same people that tune into the Super Bowl, and that's the first football game they've watched all year. Like, I really do. The basketball fan, you ask the basketball fan if they want upsets, I don't know that they do. But the one person that watches the Super Bowl, and that is the first game they've watched all season long, Diesel, they may complain, I just want a lot of upset. I mean, you don't watch anyway, so I don't want to hear it from you.
Texter, this is also RJ says, I would much rather see the runner-up from the SoCon make the NCAA tournament than the 10th place team from a Power 4 conference that hovered around 500, as an example.
Say that again?
I would much rather see the runner-up from the SoCon make the NCAA tournament than the 10th place team from a Power 4 conference that hovered around 500.
And see, that's the fan.
People will make the argument all the time, and it's one of those emotion-based arguments. There's not a whole lot of logic here. People will say that the 10th best ACC team or 10th best SEC team is just a flat-out better basketball team than the runner-up from the SoCon.
That's hard to say, though.
They will say that,
yeah,
and they will let their own Power 4 conference bias step in and say, but like that's one of those things you just can't know, right? You can't simulate that unless that mid-major, the East Tennessee State, the Furman, the Wofford, whoever it may be, unless they go on to like win the NIT tournament, because that's one of the best teams that didn't get into the field of 74 now. That's the only way you can look at it and say, well, they mowed through Arkansas. I'm just picking random schools here. They beat Arkansas, they beat Baylor, and they beat Boston College on their way to an NIT tournament win. So that team should have gotten into the NCAA tournament. That's how you could make that case.
Did you already read DB's comment?
I did not.
This is a good one. I like this. Before we run to a break, DB says, 8 is the lowest seed to ever win March Madness. Why add even more teams who will never win? Seeds 9 through 16 have never won. That's half of the field every year by having a chance. So I guess the answer to that question, Diesel, would be kind of like we talked about back during football season with an App State example of what App State's run in a if they had their own or if they had their own postseason, right? What their run in that postseason would be compared to their win over Michigan, right? So I guess that's kind of how I would, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I would answer that. DB is you're saying none of the 9 through 12s or 16s have ever won. Why have them in the first place? I guess Diesel, you tell me if I'm wrong here. The only reason that I can think of is because you do have the opportunity of a team, number one, making it to a big stage, having their brand recognized by millions of people, and having a chance for an upset. We'll do a lot for the program.
That's
right?
the low seeds, the magical moments. That's the Florida Gulf Coast, the Fairleigh Dickinsons, all those great stories, right? Do you want to eliminate those great stories and shrink it back to 32? You said nobody lower than an 8. What's 8 times 4 is 32. Why have 33 teams in this thing? Because nobody lower than an 8 has ever won. Because we do still like to see those magical runs, but I don't think we like them that much. We like 1 or 2 of them a year, and that's about it.
No, I think so. We'll see, though. We'll see if it happens. We'll see. You said that meeting's today?
Yesterday and today. So
we'll see.
So Tolos, your thoughts, 844-326-3663. Are you for or against expansion of the NCAA tournament from its current field of 68 to either 72 or 76? Just expansion in general. Are you for it or against it? 844-FAN-PHONE.
Deion Sanders' Diesel is for a salary cap. What does he mean by that? We'll tell you next. Can you believe it? SEC Media Days just next week. We'll have a lot of audio on this show from Rob Brown, as Rob Brown will be on location next week in Atlanta for SEC Media Days. And then the following week, Diesel and I, plus the Rob Brown Show, will be live in Charlotte for ACC Media Days. It's going to be a lot better this year. Why? Well, you Bill Belichick. You throw him into the mix, and all of a sudden the buzz is going to be electric. So the Wednesday and Thursday not next week, but the following week, Diesel, is when you and I will be there. That is the 23rd and 24th. However, Big 12 Media Days in Frisco, Texas, happening right now, and Deion Sanders wants a salary cap. Just knee-jerk initial reaction before we get into what he said and what it means. Deion wants a salary cap. Do you agree with him? Do you say, no, I necessarily don't want that? Whose side are you on? Knee-jerk reaction to Deion wanting a cap, Diesel?
I'm for it. I'm definitely for a salary cap. I was for NIL cap limits before, when this thing just got, when this ball just got rolling a few years ago. A salary cap means all teams in the same division have to spend the same amount of money. So Colorado has to spend the same amount of money as Texas, or vice versa. Texas cannot spend any more money on its NIL than Colorado, which would help spread the talent around. If a kid would say, hey, I could get paid $100,000 to go to Texas, which is pennies if you're going to Texas, let's be real. $100,000 to go to Texas, or Colorado might be paying me $200,000. Mm-hmm. It's kind of that. It's kind of what we had with college baseball all those years, when you had not a full ride of scholarship for every player who's on the baseball team. They would have to divvy up the 13 and a half some odd scholarships that they had. So a kid might choose to go to Coastal because Coastal could offer him 60% of a scholarship, but South Carolina was only offering him 30% of a scholarship.
So what did Deion Sanders say exactly? Deion at Big 12 Media Days said, I wish there was a cap. Sanders compared college football's NIL landscape to the NFL's salary cap system, saying, the top of the line players make this, and if you're not that type of guy, you know you're not going to make that. That's what the NFL does. He also criticized the ability of wealthier programs to offer non-elite players $500,000 deals, making it impossible for schools like Colorado to keep up. He also noted that the college football playoff teams are usually those with the deepest NIL and rev share pockets, a la Ohio State from last year, spending $25 to $30 million on a freshman class. So let's start with the first thing that he said.
Wait, the teams that spend the most money generally tend to win? In other news, water is wet.
Is that what you're saying there? The first thing, which I do find fascinating, because Deion is very familiar with the NFL, right? He says the top of the line player makes this in the NFL. And if you're not that type of guy, you know what you're going to make, or you know that you're not going to make that. That's what the NFL does. So again, the top of the line player makes this. If you know you're not that type of guy, you know you're not going to make that. That's what the NFL does. Just off of that one statement, I don't find issue, Diesel. I do side with him on that. I do agree with him that it makes life difficult for the Colorados of the world who maybe don't have the deepest NIL pockets compared to a school that you mentioned like Texas. But the NFL has a structure in place, right, where they have shown us how to handle this cap. I just don't know if I have the faith that college football will ever get to that point. I do agree with him, though, that there needs to be some sort of structure similar to this in place.
So it sounds, and correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe I'm misunderstanding what Deion is saying here. He's saying top of the line guy. Is he asking for a position group by position group salary cap, i.e., you hear the news come out that Dak Prescott just signed the most lucrative deal for a quarterback ever, right? So he's making $75 million a year. Is he talking about a salary cap by position? So now no other quarterback can ever make more than that? Or is he talking about a team salary cap, which, again, you have to field an entire team. You can't give it all to one player. And if there's a whole bunch of players making nothing while one player is making 80% of the team salary cap,
sure,
it's going to be hard to field a team.
So to answer your question, I hear you. I don't know if it is position group by position group that he's referring to, right? I don't know that if you talk about a team salary cap, how you're able to justify bringing in guys of different value when you do have to categorize it out. What do I mean? When you, again, we talked about this a million times on the show. When you do, this is why I think you have to be so careful here, when you do provide so much structure that there's no flexibility, I think a lot of people in college football would push back on that. I'm not saying that's what Deion wants, Diesel, but I'm just saying somewhere, if you have to meet in the middle, I think you do have to look at it and say, okay, we don't want to completely just make, a position by position cap and really structure this thing to where it
gets really
ink.
complex.
It's complex. It's in ink, right? There's no way to smudge those lines at all. But at the same time, we also don't want it to be like it is now, where it's the wild, wild west, and there are no guidelines whatsoever. Finding that middle ground, finding that balance, I'm all for that. I'm 100%. What that looks like, I don't necessarily know. I don't know if Deion knows. But
yeah,
again, it goes back to my original point. Do we have faith that this will ever happen with the NCAA? I don't know.
What if there was a structure in which players that were rated a 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, we're all very familiar with those ranking systems, right? What if you were guaranteed a minimum freshman contract or salary, NIL valuation, since people get icky about the word salary. If you're a 5-star and you go to a Power 5 school, you're going to get $1 million.
Sure.
If you're a 4-star and you go to a Power 5 school, you're going to get $750. If you're a 3-star, you're going to get $500. Structure it however you want.
So,
and then the team, the team can reevaluate you at the end of the year and say you either lived up to our expectation, whether that be in the classroom, whether that be on the practice field, because not all freshmen see the field. So I'm not going to make it necessarily about in-game performance.
And
but are you in good standing with the team or not? Have you done everything you need to do with the team or not? You can either keep it, you can increase it, or the team can decrease it based on how they see fit. And then you can choose to transfer if you don't like the number that you get back.
And originally, NIL was designed to have zero to do with on-field performance, right? It's complete endurance. It is name, image, likeness. So that's where it gets tricky. Now, going back to your point there about how to do it based on, so I don't have an issue with a system similar to that. I'm fine with it. However, what's the next process? What's the next step? Okay, well, who determines this crap, right?
Yeah.
Are we going to go off? You're telling me that this kid's going to get paid based off of ESPN recruiting rankings or 247 or right? You know what I mean?
A lot of them are getting paid off of that. If they're coming in as high school freshmen, that's what they're getting paid off of, their reputation.
So that's where it gets
upside.
That's where it gets tricky, though.
Yeah, it may cause them. We've seen an increase in the last 10 years or so. Every year there's like a couple of more 5-stars than there were the year prior. And number one, could it be that the talent is just getting better and better? Yeah. Or maybe these recruiting services are finding that it's good for their click-through rates when they say that Alex Jones, making up a name, Alex Jones is a 5-star receiver, and he just signed on the dotted line with Auburn.
We need to write this down as a question to ask Ramon Robinson next time we have him on, because he deals a lot with quarterbacks. We had him on, a couple of days ago, Tuesday, I believe. And quarterbacks, prospects, right? That's a good question. So Deion also goes on to talk about how the wealthier programs can offer non-elite players $500,000 deals that may not really see the field as much as someone who Colorado is paying top dollar to, which really affects their NIL budget that's going to eat up most of that NIL, and he's actually starting compared to the guy who's not starting or maybe not getting as much playing time that's making $500,000, and he says it's impossible for schools like Colorado to keep up. Again, don't necessarily disagree. It is a arms race, right? In the sense of like you said a minute ago, the wealthiest schools, who won the national championship last year? Ohio State. Who had the highest payroll in college football? Not payroll, sorry. NIL, whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Ohio State.
You know what I find funny here is Deion is saying, oh, woe is Colorado. We can't get the elite players because we can't pay as much as Ohio State, Texas, whoever. He is not saying, oh, woe is Colorado State because we're able to flip a guy to Colorado because we can get more money for him than Colorado State can.
Yeah.
Or Air Force. Well, Air Force is different because they're academy, but Boise State. A kid's looking at Boise State, Colorado State, Washington State. But Colorado comes in with more money. I don't see Deion Sanders complaining about that situation.
No, I'm with you. I just think ultimately Deion, the reform advocate, is a good position for him. Not saying he's not a good coach.
Yeah.
I think he's a great
Well,
coach.
he has to do it outside of being an FBS head coach.
Yeah.
He has to do it in a position of authority, right? Because we've seen Nick Saban speak up in the media saying, I hated NIL, and that's one of the reasons why I got out.
By the
we
way,
got Dabo Sweeney saying, I hate NIL, and if it ever goes to this, I'm out. Deion Sanders saying things. But guess what? It doesn't change anything until they have some actual power. The voices can say things that make a lot of sense, but it's still, like we were talking about in the last segment, it's the suits who ultimately make these decisions, and they don't give a rip what Nick Saban or Dabo Sweeney or Deion Sanders think.
And if you want it to change, maybe it's going to take a Deion or a Nick Saban doing kind of like, not to make it political here, but kind of pulling a Donald Trump and saying, okay, I'll go do it myself, right? And getting out of the sport, getting out of the landscape that he's normally in, and just going, and we talked about it with Saban, and potentially Diesel getting into politics, right? And what that could do for opening up these conversations.
So you want a sports dictatorship?
I don't want a sports dictatorship.
The CFD,
the
college football dictator.
I don't like dictatorship. You think we have a dictatorship now? Is that
I didn't say that. I'm not talking about that politically. I'm saying, because if you want to have somebody with the power to actually do something, how do you grant someone that kind of power?
I want a committee that's led.
I like the idea of a tribunal. Keep this thing small enough so that a few people can make the decision without 100 people being involved. What's that old saying that a camel is a horse designed by committee?
Yeah.
So you don't need 37 people in a boardroom deciding these things. You need a few people who have the best interest of the sport in mind.
And it's got to be former coaches.
How can we make the most money, like we were talking about before?
Yeah, and I think it has to be former coaches. I think or former players too. I'm not saying you have to be a coach, but I do want to see, and again, I want to see somebody who's been in it leave that role and just dedicate their next 10, 15 years to making it happen. I care about the sport. And look, I know the suits that are making those decisions might not necessarily care in the same way that you and I do, but I want somebody, whether it's Deion or Saban or whoever it is, I think Deion would do a fantastic job as the leader of this tribe to form a committee or a tribunal. I just want it done.
Cole, I've gotten at least 3 spam emails, and I had my mom call me the other day. Is this thing real or is this thing spam?
Yeah.
Still getting those all the time, but those are relatively low level and low stakes compared to what happened to one NFL star who got scammed out of a ton of money. We'll rue the day for him next.
Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
2 weeks ago, Cole, I brought Christy Dosh on this show. Great guest, professor at the University of Florida, literally wrote the book on athletes managing their NIL situations. And she says she teaches athletes all the time in advance. Here's what to look out for. Here's how you handle certain situations. And you know what she said to me? It is incredibly difficult to get these athletes to pay attention to this information. Like, this is what's going to affect your money.
Yeah.
You need to pay attention to this. And they don't. They only pay attention to it after something crazy happens, which I don't know if that's the exact situation going on with Minnesota Viking Dallas Turner. But Dallas got scammed out of $240,000 in a banking fraud scheme that is currently being investigated by Twin Cities police there in Minnesota. Now, the Minnesota Vikings claim that they train their players 3 times a year in fraud. They have Zoom calls, I'm sure, multiple times a year. They call in experts to provide advice. They're there. They try to help. But Dallas Turner, who's new to the NFL, made the mistake. He got a phone call saying that, hey, Dallas, we're from JP Morgan Chase, and somebody is trying to break into your account and steal your money. So what we need you to do is we need you to wire $120,000 to 2 separate bank accounts to make sure that those thieves can't get your money.
You know, number one, it does stink. That's a lot of money to you and I. Might not be a lot to him. However, number two, Diesel, those Zoom meetings that you're talking about, Dallas probably treats those Zoom meetings the same way I do, right? It's like, okay, we'll turn them on. I hope nobody important's listening right now, but we'll turn them on and we'll check in every now and then. But I'm not listening to this lady ramble on for an hour about how to protect my bank account. I know how to protect it, and I don't need her guidance and blah, 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 blah.
Well,
it is unfortunate, though. What was it? Was it $200,000?
Did he really know how to protect his bank account? Because he got for $240,000.
$240,000. That's a lot of money. Maybe not for an NFL player, but for me and you, that's a lot of money.
He got an $8.5 million signing bonus. Still, $240,000 is a ton of money. I don't care if I'm a billionaire. I'm still upset about $240,000.
Yeah, you would think so. However, I will say this. Going back to your very original point that you brought the segment in on about you asking, was it Christy Dosh? Is that right? Yep. Christy Dosh? People don't care about it until it happens to them. You know what I mean? Like, people don't really understand how it can get them until it gets them. Same thing with NIL and the players that are signing all these NIL deals. They're blinded, Diesel. In my mind, in my opinion, they're blinded by the dollar signs.
You see it all the time. So-and-so is leaving Miami or leaving Georgia because they were promised XYZ in NIL money, and they didn't deliver on their NIL promises. So these guys are signing up for smoke and mirrors. They're signing up for snake oil, and they don't know for sure if they're protected and they'll actually get their money. My mom calls me the other day, like, freaking out. She goes, Apple's going to delete my iCloud. They're going to delete all my backup. I was like, wait a minute, who's sending you this? Apple sent it to me. Is your iCloud full? Well, how do I check that? So you go into your settings and you click on iCloud and you see how much storage you're using versus how much you have. I was like, how much are you using? 14 out of 200. I'm like, so why would they be deleting your stuff? Because you're going over. You got to use your head on these scams. You got to use your. I watch all these YouTube channels. Scammer Payback is one of my favorite YouTube channels. I love that. Where the guy he goes online, impersonates old gullible people, uses a voice changer, impersonates old people, and then shuts down the scammers' computers while they're trying to scam who they think is an old lady.
I think that's the greatest content ever created.
Yeah.
I saw one of those yesterday where the lady, the scammer called Diesel, and the lady pretended like she was on a TV broadcast. It was the greatest thing in the world. It was like a news reporter. I absolutely love it. I need a number, Diesel, from you, and I need a number from the Tolos. I'll explain on the other side. Tolos, I told you we needed a number. What on earth am I talking about? We don't need your number, but we do need a number from you. We want to know how many, and this is, by the way, going to require you putting your thinking cap on, Tolos out there. Be careful, Dewey. How many legitimate contenders are there in 2025 when it comes to winning the 2025 national title? Again, how many legitimate contenders are there out there this season in 2025? Is it 1, 2, 3? Is it 10? We want to hear from you. By the way, we'll be joined by Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com in about 20 minutes to talk about the quarterback that Clemson landed earlier today. But I need a number. JD already getting in on the YouTube stream where you can watch the show, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. 77 people doing so right now on the stream. I have a number. I have some teams written down, but I want to know from you Tolos out there at 844-326-3663, how many legit contenders are there and who they are. Diesel, if I set the over-under at 6.5 national title contenders, where would you lean?
Under.
Ooh.
Under.
Ooh.
I think there are 4 teams whose ceiling are national championship win. I think there are 4 more whose ceiling is probably a Final Four berth. And then 4 more on top of that who their ceiling is just making the CFP.
I like that. Their ceilings aren't separated by miles, but they are separated by ceiling tiles, you say, right? Or some staircases, and I guess some stairs depending on how many teams you have them and where you have them. This is a tough conversation. And I did pull some information on the quarterbacks and the head coaches that are the projected starting quarterbacks for these teams. But Diesel, I wrote down a list, and I want to hear your reaction to this list. I also want to hear the reaction of the Tolos out there. I put some maybes, and I need some help from you on these maybes. But here's what I wrote down. You put 4-ish, right?
Yep.
I put Georgia, Bama, Clemson, LSU, Texas, Ohio State, and Oregon as legitimate contenders to win the 2025 national title. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which would go over on the 6.5 number that I set, right? Mm-hmm. 7 teams in my mind that have a legitimate shot of winning the national title. Other than those 7, I put a maybe, and then I put 3 more teams. So I have 10 teams written down. The maybes are A&M, Penn State, turning a quarterback, really good quarterback, and Notre Dame. Where am I right? Where am I wrong on my list in terms of legitimate contenders?
Legitimate contender that I think you have that has to be stricken, that I don't have as a legitimate contender on mine, but are sitting in that Final Four ceiling.
Okay.
Most egregious one to me is Texas. It's Texas. I like
that. It's gonna ruffle some feathers, right?
You are anointing Arch Manning as a college football contending quarterback in year 1. Yeah. He might be. He very well might be. He might come in and be everything as advertised.
Sure.
But as the old ball coach said last week, he hadn't played. If he was that good, why wasn't he playing last year? Why was Quinn Ewers, to accurately quote Steve, why was Quinn Ewers playing if Arch Manning was that good?
No, I hear you. I don't push back on that. I'm with you. And again, when I wrote this, Diesel, down on the rundown and I came up with this list, I did think to myself, maybe 7 to 10 is a little too much. But again, why did I put those down? I think Georgia, under Kirby Smart, Diesel, have proven to us that year in and year out, they're a legitimate contender every season. Bama, that's the one that I'll tell you this. Kalen DeBoer, I wasn't high on last year. However, Diesel, in 2025, Bama's going to be loaded. And I mean, they're going to be really, really good. So it's hard for me, and maybe this is where I'm wrong. If you think so, tell me. It's hard for me to take Bama out of national championship contention just because Kalen DeBoer didn't have the best year in year one, when ultimately they're still going to be uber talented. Any issue with Bama
being a national championship contender?
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to play quarterback for him this year? Another big question mark.
Yeah.
I guarantee whoever he is, he's a 5-star, right? Guarantee he's a 5-star. That's one of the great things about coaching at Alabama. Even if you're like an A-minus level coach, and I'm not saying Kalen DeBoer is, I'm just saying if. Even if you're an A-minus level coach compared to Nick Saban being an A++ coach, if you're not like the guy when it comes to recruiting, they still got the money that can change a lot of kids' minds.
And I think Ty Simpson is the one that's projected to be the guy. Red shirt, junior without looking, I believe. Bama's the interesting one for me. Texter, this is, let's see. JD says, I sent my pushback on Bama. Oh, on the stream, he says, Bama under DeBoer has tons to prove before I can put them there. After all, they did miss the playoffs. So I understand that, and I thought, Diesel, when I put Bama on this list, I thought to myself that Bama would be the one that I got the most pushback on. In terms of Georgia, we can agree with that, right? Would you consider Georgia in yours contender? Yeah.
Georgia's a contender.
Bama, I think there's a lot of people. Tolos, where do you stand on Bama? I think Bama's the one that really will create the divide, if you will. To JD's point, there's question marks there with DeBoer. They didn't make the playoff last year. They're still uber talented, Diesel, but
and he's been uber successful everywhere he's ever been.
He has.
Are we judging him on?
Right.
Are we essentially judging him on the Vandy game from last year?
Yeah,
is that what it all comes down to?
And the Michigan game and the bowl game, pretty much. So I think, Tolos, tell me if I'm wrong, I think Bama will be the team that you kind of feel like there's the most divide on. Clemson, any pushback there? You've got him in your contender.
I've got him in my ceiling as a national championship. Clemson, LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, because they're just – I think LSU is probably my preseason pick for national championship.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I mean,
I think so.
Garrett Nussmeier returning means a lot. So LSU's who I had after Clemson. I do have Texas. We talked about Texas. Ohio State's on mine. Now, you go back to quarterback. What is Ohio State going to look like with a new quarterback? I think that's interesting with Will Howard gone, right? And how good he was last year. They still are going to be really talented. They lost a lot, though, but they have this guy named Jeremiah Smith, Diesel, that I think is going to catch a lot of balls, right, and score a lot of touchdowns. So ultimately, it's hard for me, even though Ohio State lost as much as they did, it's hard for me to take them out of national championship contention. It did. Ryan Day, we know, you and I know, we both believe in Ryan Day. We both know how good of a coach he is. I'm not pulling the plug on Ohio State quite yet being a national championship contender. Now, here's one where I might get pushback. The Ducks, the Oregon Ducks. If you in your mind, Diesel, have a problem with Oregon being in my national championship conversation, being a legit contender, we know that Dan Lanning's a good coach. I would say, if I had to guess, that Bama and Oregon are going to be the two teams on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line and the stream where most of the Tolos push back and disagree. Would you say the same? Bama and Oregon?
Yeah, I've got Oregon and Bama in my ceiling as a Final Four. I think they're both playoff teams. I think they both win a game in the playoff. I think they could reach the Final Four.
And that's not a big difference for you and I. I mean, you saying they're in the Final Four, me saying they're national championship contenders, right? I mean, we're talking about really good teams here.
Yeah,
so
we're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
We are. JD on the stream says losing to Vandy and not making a 12-team playoff is a catastrophe for a highly touted is what you mean, highly touted head coach with Nick Saban's roster. You can't just edit the name on the back of the jersey and plug him in. It's not the same thing. Kalen DeBoer is a different guy from Nick Saban. You know, these players, they may say we've bought into Coach DeBoer's system, but they are Nick Saban disciples. They all came to Alabama. They stayed at Alabama for Nick, right? It's not the same guy. His processes are different. His preparation is different. So saying you couldn't do it with a Nick Saban roster, to me, doesn't hold a lot of weight because they're two different guys. They're two different guys, and every single player and person in that organization had to choose for themselves whether or not they were buying into Kalen DeBoer.
It's interesting, man. I think that Bama conversation is the most fun. And look, I know that we were all sick and tired of Bama being as dominant as they were for so long, but I do think now that they've come back down a little bit to earth, Diesel, and that they're kind of hovering around being that national championship contender, I think it's great for sports radio. I think it's fun to talk about because we love seeing dynasties fall, right? We love seeing the end of the road. On the Hub City Spartanburgers text line, Philip Rollins says 5. Ohio State, Clemson, Texas, Georgia, and Notre Dame. Philip Rollins giving those 5 as his legitimate contenders to win the national championship. He says, in my opinion, with the talent Texas has, Manning should be able to get them to the Natty if he's mid, as long as he manages the game. He also says Alabama will finish 5th or lower in the SEC. Ooh, that's a bold prediction there.
Yeah,
5th or lower.
Saying that Arch Manning can be a game manager and go win the national championship at Texas. That's bold. That's bold.
That's a fun aspect, though.
All these teams have difference makers at quarterback. So you're telling me that an average quarterback who can just make the right throws, that guy is going to win it for Texas? Why? Because his last name? What if his name was Steve Smith? Not the Steve Smith.
Yeah.
But if his name is Damian Foster, are you saying it because it's Arch?
Well, maybe. I will say this, though, to kind of play devil's advocate, Diesel, Texas, you could argue that Texas, with the money they have, should be able to plug a quarterback in and go win a national championship. Nick Saban did it every year, right?
They just had a 5-star there last year and couldn't do it.
I know.
They had a 5-star. You guys act like Quinn was a bum. He was a 5-star. He
Spurrier
was
said
that,
that, not me.
Dude. Quinn was that dude, and it wasn't enough.
I know. I don't know.
Pump the brakes a little bit here.
But you would just think. You'd think as much money as that program has ability to get guys in like Ohio State did last year and that big payroll they had. Texter on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line says, Diesel and Cole, how much of a factor do you think Tom Allen's defense will be in a hypothetical college football playoff run for Clemson? So if you look at Clemson, Diesel, as a legitimate contender, which you and I both have them on our list, right? Mm-hmm. If you look at them as a contender, you ask the question, why? And if you answer the why, I believe you would start with Cade Klubnik and Garrett Riley's return. You would also throw in the receiving core that we've talked about a bunch, that they should be loaded as long as they stay healthy, right? The wide receiver position. And then somewhere down the list, 3rd or 4th, you, Diesel, and I would say, most people would say, plus, we feel like they upgraded at defensive coordinator from Wes Goodwin to Tom Allen. They had a good defense last year, but at times, as we talked about a lot in 2024, at times you kind of looked at Wes Goodwin and thought, what are you doing here? So to answer your question on the text line, texter, how much of a factor do you think his defense will be in their potential run to the college football playoff? I think it's up there. I think it's a top 3 factor in my mind.
Well, here's some statistics here for you. So without parsing every position by position, this linebacker is better than that linebacker, this DB core is better than that DB core. Last year, Clemson ranked 60th in team defense, giving up 374 yards a game. 60th. Penn State was 7th.
That's what I was going to ask.
They gave up 295. Clemson gave up 375.
Yeah.
So the difference is 80 yards a game. That's a score. That's a touchdown. That's the average touchdown yardage you have to gain to go score a touchdown. That's a touchdown. So that takes a touchdown off of Cade Klubnik's got to do this every game to win.
And another response.
That's how you answer that question.
I would also agree with that, Diesel, and say, well, just look at the 2024 schedule as a whole. You replace Wes Goodwin with Tom Allen. Georgia game, yeah, still going to lose that one, right? You lost 34-3.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville, though, couple possession game, right? South Carolina, 3-point game. You know what happens if you win those two games? You're a lot better. Your positioning into the college football playoff is a lot better than where it was, right? Which means your team is better than where it was, which means you might be able to beat Texas, who you gave up 38 points to, right? A good Texas offense. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I agree. I think you have to definitely look at Tom Allen as a factor in what not only he did at Penn State, but what he can do. Couple of quick texts. Texter says, Manning last name has nothing to do with it. The talent Texas has. Any decent quarterback who can manage the game could lead them to a natty. Texter also says, no particular order. Clemson, Ohio State, Penn State, Texas, Georgia, Oregon, Penn State versus Oregon in the final Big Ten wins third straight national. Oh, he's predicting the Big Ten winning a third straight natty.
So, remind me here, who took over for Tom Allen at Penn State?
If you wouldn't have asked me, I could have told you it was another well-known defensive coordinator, and I just
so now we have to look at how his defense compared last year.
So
Jim Knowles.
Okay.
Jim Knowles. We need to look and see what Jim Knowles' defense did last year, and whether or not we believe he's getting an upgrade in talent from what he had last year to this year. Jim Knowles, he was at Ohio State, right? He was the DC at Penn State, correct? Or he was the DC at Ohio State.
I believe.
Takes the job at Penn State. Tom Allen from Penn State goes to Clemson. I mean, Penn State is going to have a baller defense again next year because Ohio State's defense was good last year. Mm-hmm. So I've got Penn State as my fourth team whose ceiling is a Final Four.
And I think they're going to be good. I really do. I'm high on them. I think they're going to have a good year. You return a quarterback that's experienced and as talented as Drew Aller, and you should have a good year. Now, look, Penn State, on the flip side, losing Tom Allen to Jim Knowles, to your point, Diesel, that hurt a little bit, maybe. But ultimately, I think that you do return a quarterback, and the reason we're talking about Clemson, the reason we're talking about these other programs that return a quarterback, it's just how vital it is in terms of getting to that national championship.
Here's the answer to that question. Ohio State gave up 255 yards a game last year. Number 1 defense in the country. Penn State, number 7 defense in the country. Clemson, number 60 defense in the country. So I'm not saying that Clemson's going to jump from 60 to 7 just because Tom Allen's there. A lot of personnel changes have happened. But if Clemson and Tom Allen in year number 1 can get Clemson's defense into top 20 territory, with as good as that offense is, I think a national championship is very much in the realm of possibility for Clemson next year. When we come back, let's talk about Clemson football some more. And Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com going to join us to talk about a brand new quarterback who just committed to the Tigers today.
Cole Bryson on the Fan Upstate.
Well, it's never too early to start talking college football recruiting. Joining us right now on the show, Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson, to talk about the 2045 class, a bunch of kids that haven't even been born yet. Grayson Mann, what can you tell us about this 2-year-old prodigy who has just signed with the Clemson Tigers?
Well, they've started to walk a little early, so I think that shows initiative. So I think the way you want to view that is who's crawling, who's walking, and who's just laying around. That's just winners and losers right there.
That's what I look for. I look for elite speed from the jungle gym to the blocks. If they can make that, I'm good. Tell us about this new Clemson commit, Kareem Hughley, signed for the 2027 class. Had a lot of big-time offers. If you look at that alone, you say that a lot of big-time schools wanted him, and Garrett Riley was able to get the signature.
Well, and sticking with the joke, he certainly is not crawling. He's not walking. He's just dazzling scouts. And I turned on his tape, and obviously it's going to be really difficult for, I think, people to separate the Deshaun Watson comparison. Obviously, went to the same high school, Gainesville High, and then obviously with the Clemson legacy there. But I saw a player that has sort of the best of both worlds, if that makes sense. A player that can do the backyard football stuff, can improvise. I think one of his plays, it's a scramble to his left, and makes a subtle shift in the pocket when rolling out. The feet are very controlled, and he just delivers a strike over a safety to the end zone. That way, right there, I was sold. I was thinking Clemson was going to likely play this out with the 4 quarterback offers they had made, but Hughley ends up pulling the trigger. He had committed a few days prior to this announcement being public, but ultimately, guys, this is a player. This is one of those dudes you look at on the recruiting trail and think Clemson got a good one, and good one early.
Grayson, you and I were talking earlier today. You've talked to the quarterback commit now before he committed. Was there a feeling among those on staff and those in the recruiting world that it was Clemson and everybody else, or where did Clemson stand in your mind?
It's fascinating, too, because the pursuit for quarterbacks right now, obviously Peyton Houston, the 4-star out of Louisiana, had been the only offer for about closer to a month. And so you felt like that was their top guy. But out of nowhere on the 4th of July weekend, 3 offers go out. And so you're starting to put the puzzle pieces together. It makes sense, especially in this era, for Clemson to keep their options open and to have as many, I think, voices in the room as possible as to where they could potentially go. Quarterback, obviously, you got to get that one figured out, or the rest of the foundation of the class doesn't really truly matter. And so in talking all 3 QBs, it felt like I had sort of alluded to earlier, I wasn't exactly expecting something public to come out, but it feels like in the background, after talking to a couple more contacts, talking to Hughley himself this afternoon, the wheels had been turning much quicker than we had all anticipated. And this was something that once this offer was public, it was only a matter of time.
Grayson, when you look at the type of quarterbacks that Garrett Riley has recruited and gotten to sign over the past couple of years, you look at Hughley, you look at Tate Reynolds, Chris Denson, and the guys that are on the roster already. Are you noticing a pattern of the type? Like he's really kind of honing in on a certain type of quarterback, or is Garrett kind of doing I'm going to go get the absolute best quarterback I can get, no matter what style they are, and then I'm going to adapt to them once they get on campus?
I think 2 things can be true at once. You want to search for the best fit for your offense, and I think what we've seen, and I think Cade Klubnik's a great model for it, a quarterback that you can trust in the pocket to deliver, make those tough throws. Just to make another comparison on Hughley, it's a guy that makes tough throws, stands in the pocket. I think his first throw, if you turn on his huddle tape, he gets absolutely blasted by a defensive tackle, which is layers of throw. I think it's a corner route to the left side of the field. So this is a guy that's willing to stand in and make the tough throws, and not many high school quarterbacks are willing to do that on a consistent basis. That's what I've seen on tape so far. Klubnik, a tough quarterback, but also at the same time, you can make plays, you can freelance a little bit. We've seen Cade do it often over and over again, where he's not just someone that'll stand in the pocket and pick you apart. He's someone that can roll out to his left, roll out to his right, and make the throws that are needed to succeed at this level. This is a dual threat type of archetype that we're looking at with Hughley. And so I think, yes, they're looking for a specific type of quarterback, but I think at the same time, Riley's just looking for that best fit that can go along with what they're kind of trying to recruit here nowadays.
Grayson, Diesel mentioned Tate Reynolds, and I believe those two would be, a year apart?
Yes.
So when you look at Not trying to dismiss Cade Klubnik, but we all know that this year will be Cade Klubnik's last season, and in 2026 you'll have a new quarterback under center for Clemson. When you look at the next 2 to 4 years, when Grayson Mann shakes his crystal ball or his magic 8 ball, you have Tate Reynolds, who's a highly talented guy. Now with this commitment, what do those next 2 to 4 years in your mind look like?
Competition. It's going to be a real healthy type, and we still have Christopher Vizina to discuss on this roster, who assumingly is going to be the guy that's next up or has the chance to assume command once Cade Klubnik leaves. I wish I had an 8 ball around, by the way. That'd be kind of cool to just like shake that real quick and give you all an answer. Really just stick with the bits that y'all have set me up. You're giving me slam dunks here. But I think as of today, if I had to make the assumption, I think 2026 would either be Christopher Vizina or maybe a quarterback in the portal that's got 1 year left on him. I think I like what Tate Reynolds brings to the table. I just don't know in terms of physically, when I turn on what I'm seeing just on the tape, I see a raw prospect, at least, especially when throwing the football. His completion percentage has taken a vast jump from his sophomore to junior season, but this is still someone that I think would benefit from sitting for a year and developing under Garrett Riley. So I do think ultimately Sweeney's going to lean Vizina, but I wouldn't rule out the option of let's bring in a guy for a year who's got a year of left of eligibility. Let's bring in some healthy competition. Let's just see how it goes. And then in 2027, you kind of open the doors for a Tate Reynolds, or you open the doors for a Hewley to maybe start his freshman year. I do think that will follow this kind of sequential path where, and obviously things change. Like handshakes are made, deals are made now. So nothing is finalized until these kids step on campus. But I think my answer, at least for 2026, is Vizina. And then the rest is kind of a mystery at this point. We'll see how things shake out. 2027 is a long way away.
Grayson, kind of playing off of that a little bit, you mentioned Vizina in 2026, and you're right, 2027 is a long way away, but you also threw in the transfer portal right there with 2026. You cover Clemson, you have a good feel on, Dabo and his guys, and the guys that Dabo is loyal to because he's a loyal guy, a loyal coach, right? Honest Grayson Mann, though, do you feel like the transfer portal is more of a kind of last minute, hit the panic button, we need somebody, Vizina's not the guy we thought he was going to be, or do you feel like that has equal possibility in 2026?
I think, and this is not based off of any conversation that I've had, I think the decision's likely already been made. I think this spring was a very intentional move on Sweeney's part to give Vizina as much visibility as possible. There was a lot of reports that he was taking a lot of the lion's share, really, of the reps this spring. They know what they have in Cade Klubnik. Obviously, they can use the fall as more of a preparation for him, but they needed to see how much he's progressed. And I think one of the storylines coming out of the spring was Vizina does look better. Now, is it better enough for them to justify that we're comfortable as the future quarterback here once Cade leaves? I think that's up to them. But I think that spring was ultimately that audition for him to really see if he's the guy moving forward. And so I think we'd find out relatively quickly if once Cade declares for the NFL draft, whether that's late January or that's after December, we'll find out pretty soon here. But I do think that the decision's probably already been made. I wouldn't expect Sweeney, especially at the quarterback position, with the momentum that this team's likely going to carry in 2025. I think they've got to be pretty urgent with that kind of decision if they're even thinking about it.
Grayson Mann of TigerNet.com joins us here on the Fan Upstate. Cole gave you the chance to look into your crystal ball. I'm going to give you a chance to put on your prediction pants here. And
short, so.
Well, whatever floats your boat. I wouldn't know, and I didn't need to know. But so how are you feeling, or how are you getting a sense of Garrett Riley's desire or intention to stay in Clemson for years to come? I mean, he's a hot name that a lot of people are going to come calling for. If things go the way that a lot of people think it might, and Clemson makes a really solid run this year, people are going to be throwing offers at Garrett Riley. So let's put it in the context of this new recruit that just signed with Clemson, Kareem Hewley. Will Garrett Riley still be around as his OC by the time he finally wears the jersey?
Man, I'm trying to continue to stay in the line of 2027 is a very long way away. But Diesel, I think that if you're right, if Clemson makes this big run in 2025 that we all expect, and let's just throw for hypothetical sake. Let's say Clemson at worst is in the national championship this year. And let's just say they're runner-ups. Let's say someone beats them on a game-winning field goal, or it's 2015 Alabama style where it's back and forth, but they were just a couple plays away. Let's just say that happens at worst. There's going to be a lot of teams. They're going to throw their way at Garrett Riley because this Clemson offense is going to be one of the big reasons why they're successful. They're not going to be focused on Tom Allen, who's already been head coach before, Matt Luke, who's already been a head coach before. Riley becomes that hot commodity. And I think it depends on which schools are offering him. I think if you're Riley and you're in this position at Clemson, I think you're waiting for that big fish in this pond of college football. I don't think this is holding out for, this is no disrespect, this is not holding out for like an ECU or some of those like group of 5 schools. I think you're trying to wait for a Power 4 fish. And so we'll see which schools bite. We'll see which movement is made. I feel like I'd be able to give you a better answer in January as to whether Riley were to stay or not, just because of the nature of we're going to see what coaches on the hot seat get ultimately canned at the end of the season. We're going to see how Clemson's offense looks in December. This will be the second straight year, potentially with a top 10 offense in the country and potentially playoff results to go with that. So he'll be a hot commodity if that's the case, Diesel. And so it makes it very tough to predict whether he'll still be here in 27, but that's just guesstimation at this point.
So to play off that answer here, do you think he's looking for sort of that albatross of a situation where it's a good program that is sort of hitting at a high level, maybe a head coach who was successful retires and Garrett can just step right in and kind of take over the keys to a Ferrari? Or, would you predict or guess that he'd be willing to take a Virginia job the way Tony Elliott did? And, let's be real, Virginia's not a great head coaching job. It never has been. Would he take a job like that at a lesser program just to get that Power 4 head coaching stripe?
Riley reads me as someone that's really comfortable in his situation right now. So I think the right situation's probably going to have to open up for him, and that still may be a right spot for him. He may view himself as someone who could turn a Virginia into a powerhouse. Who knows what he's sort of thinking right now? And that's only if we could go into the mind of Garrett Riley and ask him what sort of is going through his head. But I think right now it's all focused on the 2025 season for Clemson to give sort of the PR answer there. But in terms of his head coaching attractiveness across the country, it's going to likely depend on this 2025 season. And if we're sitting here in January and Clemson's playing Ohio State in the national championship, there's going to be phone calls to be made. And I think that that's something Clemson fans should probably prepare their reality for.
Grayson, when it comes to Kyreem Hughley, there were, I believe you mentioned Deshaun Watson earlier in terms of comparisons. Do we feel like those comparisons are because of the style in which he plays? For somebody that hasn't watched the tape on this new commit, why would you say, or what attributes would you say that Hughley has that maybe would compare to Deshaun Watson?
I just remember Deshaun Watson being a winner. That was just the great trait that always stuck with it. It was the big moments. You felt like things kind of slowed down. They cooled off, and big plays were made, whether that was from the pocket on big third downs or you saw Watson sort of freelance. I think the greatest memories Clemson fans have of him is just flustering Nick Saban, being able to get flushed out of the pocket and still make things happen. And Hughley has all of that. And so it's tough it's almost low-hanging fruit in a sense where it automatically goes to Deshaun when you think of Gainesville quarterback, committed to Clemson, similar play styles. You're thinking, okay, where is this potentially headed? And so I think a lot of fans are excited off of that alone. And it's kind of cool in a way with this lineage of you have a quarterback that's built a legacy at Clemson, one of the greatest quarterbacks to play under Dabo Swinney. And now you got a kid nearly a decade later who's committed to play from that same school. So it's tough I think I talked to him about this sort of legacy and this decision. And he said plainly, he's just focused on winning national championships when he gets here. That's the goal. And that's the kind of legacy he wants to set.
So, Grayson, how big is he really? Because his post, and then the one that Clemson retweeted, says he's 6 feet, 200 pounds.
Yeah.
If you go on his rival's profile, he's 5'11", 190 pounds. An inch and 10 pounds is a big difference. By the time he actually plays, is he going to be 6'4", 230?
I mean, that's a great question. He might have to ask his doctor that. But I think right now, in terms of height, we've seen different examples. A guy like Bryce Young or Kyler Murray, who I think I'm taller than both of those guys, and they're pretty darn good at the game. So height necessarily isn't one where I'm like, oh, Clemson's recruiting a short quarterback. Like, I know Clemson's bringing in a pretty monstrous offensive line in terms of recruits where they're all the size of the Eiffel Tower here, but in terms of that stature, but I think I wouldn't be too concerned about the height. It may be 5'11", maybe 5'10", and maybe 6 feet with cleats on. I think the kid can play, and that's all that matters.
Grayson, last question before we let you run. This is the second commit, 2027. If I'm correct me if I'm wrong there. Between the two, which are more immediate impact kind of guys between Hughley and Max Brown?
I think right now I'd have to go with Max Brown just because we don't know what's going to happen with quarterback. I don't think Hughley is in that spot where, and this could potentially be the case, a lot will change, but linebacker is a spot that's going to be a little bit easier to get transitioned into, and I really like Max Brown's tape. I think that's a kid that has the potential to be just as good as his brother, a little bit more of a cerebral athlete, not as quick as a Sammy, but still lots of good traits. Clemson's off to a good start this class.
At Gray_man with 2 N's 21 on X is where you can find him. Go give him a follow. He's like right there from crossing over another 1,000 followers. So Tolos, be a part of that. Help him reach that next milestone. Grayson, you're the best.
Appreciate you, man.
You guys are too kind. Thank you all. Take care.
Thanks, Grayson.
John Gruden, Diesel, made a Greenville famous. If you haven't seen the 5-minute video, guess what? It's pretty remarkable. It's pretty incredible. Furman all over Barstool Sports. We'll have that audio for you next. What if I told you, Diesel, that John Gruden made us famous? What am I talking about? What if I told you that he made Greenville famous? Furman Paladins, John Gruden. You've seen, Diesel, the teams, the organizations that are sending Gruden boxes, right?
Yep.
And it was the Swamp Rabbits did it not long ago, and he was bragging about the Swamp Rabbits and how amazing that was. Do you have an issue? Like, eventually this thing's going to have to come to an end.
Sure.
But right now, it's like the cool trend is just for everybody and anybody to send John Gruden cool stuff about their team. And right now, I'm a fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's great publicity. Barstool Gruden has 472,000 followers. So a good chunk of those see him.
Yeah.
They get shared around to people. I mean, you can't see how many people have actually seen this video because it doesn't give you analytics like that. It's got almost 3,000 likes.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
And it's on Instagram, Twitter, every platform.
I don't know how many people see these videos who otherwise don't have a connection to Furman or whoever the school may be and say, oh, that's cool gear. I'll buy one of those.
So
I'll go on their Furman website and buy something.
It is a little bit lengthy, but it's awesome because I don't know how he does this, Diesel. He shouts out every single player and coach you can think of that ever played. I mean, it's really remarkable.
He's got cue cards. I guarantee you he's got cue cards.
Here is that audio. John Gruden giving Greenville and Furman some LOVE.
Ooh, look at this box, Clay. This box comes from a very special place in South Carolina. They call it Furman, baby. Furman. The Paladins. A lot of people don't even know what a paladin is. I didn't either. But the Furman Paladins. I had to look it up. The Furman Paladins. A paladin. They have the coolest mascot ever. It's like this guy, this knight. He rides on this horse. He's a very scary looking character. A paladin, okay? It's a knightly, a knightly heroic person on a horse. And he rides around and he scares the opposition, man. He's tough. He's into good and justice. That's what a paladin is. The Furman Paladins, they're in the Southern Conference. Let me tell you about the Southern Conference. East Tennessee State, Southern Conference. VMI, Sanford, Wofford. But it's Furman that raises hell in the Southern Conference. Look at that. West Carolina, all these teams in the Southern Conference, they got to deal with Furman, the Paladins. And they're from Greenville, South Carolina, baby. Head coach Clay Hendricks. He's a badass. Clay Hendricks played offensive line at Furman. He was on the 1988 National Championship team. And now he's back as a head coach. And he clearly has the Paladins. Look at these guys right here. You like that right there, Clay? Awesome. This is a very heroic person into good and justice. I love this purple. Don't you love the royal purple and white colors of Furman? They've had a lot of great players. I came from the Green Bay Packers. I used to have a quarterback named David Whitehurst. David Whitehurst threw for like 6,000 yards for the Packers. They also had the great Sam Weish playing quarterback at Furman. Sam Weish was a paladin. You know, Sam Weish was a great coach. Former head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Sam Weish, I think, one of the most innovative offensive coaches in NFL college, all of football history. He was at the forefront of the no-huddle offense. Would you look at that hat right there? Is that sweet? There's nothing like the Paladins, man. Sam Weish, David Whitehurst. They had a guy named Ingle Martin. He was like a 5th-round draft choice of the Green Bay Packers playing quarterback. What the hell's this? Fragile. You know who my favorite player at Furman was? He was a running back. Played for the Cincinnati Bengals named Stanford Jennings. He could run it. He could catch it. He could hurt you, man. What the hell is this? This is something. F you all the time. Is that unbelievable?
It's booze, by the
What I
way,
need
Diesel.
in the morning.
Oh.
F you
Oh,
all
they
the
sent him
time,
some of the
baby.
whiskey.
And it means Furman University for all you sick-minded people. Look at this. Look at this carrying case right here. When I was with the Eagles, we had a tight end from Furman named Luther Broughton. Pretty good player right here. You know, I was in a golf tournament a couple years ago. I got to play a couple holes with this Brad Faxon. He's won 8 PGA tours. You know where he's from? F you, baby. You like that, Clay? Huh. Look at these sweats. No, these are shorts. How sweet is that? You ever heard of Victoria Jackson on Saturday Night Live? She's hilarious. She went to Furman. I was watching Saturday Night Live, and they had this skit they did, the stupidest game show ever. Who's the dumbest person in America? It was Woody Harrelson and Victoria Jackson. And the question was, what year was the War of 1812? And these two people acted dumb, and it was hilarious anyways. This is the Furman Paladins. You like these sweats right here? This is the home of Jerome Felton, fullback of the Minnesota Vikings. This is the home right here of Dakota Dozier, former offensive lineman with the New York Jets. This is a letter I got right here. Check this out. Coach Gruden, we hope you enjoy the swag. F you one time, F you 2 times, F you 3 times, F you all the time, all the best from the Furman football staff, the home of Orlando Ruff, former linebacker of the Chargers. I mean, you know, when head coach Jimmy Satterfield was there for that 1988 national championship, they kicked everybody's ass. And Clay Hendricks was on that team. But they've had a lot of great coaches. Bobby Johnson won over 60 games. I mean, there's been a lot of guys like Dick Sheridan. Dick Sheridan's the guy that got this place rolling. He's the guy that got the place rolling, man. Dick Sheridan. Bobby Johnson. Bobby Lamb won over 60 games. They've had a history of greatness. It's Furman University, and it's FU all the time, baby. 15 conference titles. This is a ball club that knows how to roll, and they got a great mascot, the Paladins, the Furman University Paladins. I think you should get a ticket to Paladin Stadium. 16,000 rockin' fans. They only got about 2,000 full-time undergraduate students. It's a hell of a place. It's exclusive. Greenville, South Carolina, the home of the Paladins. Keep it rolling, Coach Hendricks. Have a great year, and get after the guys in the Southern Conference. See ya.
Is that not remarkable? I mean, can we not get a clap for that? I mean, that is so good.
John
man.
Gruden has figured out how to take his unending depth and wells of positivity and turn it into one of the greatest, most repeatable, easy to do
That's
social
so
media
good, man.
content series I've ever seen.
And the facts and history behind that?
I don't see. Here's my thought. I truly believe that he does one of those videos every time he needs fresh laundry. I don't think John Gruden ever does laundry.
But he's got a lot of clothes,
You know,
doesn't he?
whenever the last one he did, when all that swag runs out, he's like, oh, just so happens to be a box here from Furman.
But
Let's do
shout
a
out
Furman
to
video.
whoever
It's so
did all
good.
the investigation, the research, right? I mean, they had research
Yeah.
going back a good ways, man. That was awesome. So shout out to John Gruden. I love that.
I can confirm, by the way, as he opened up and unrolled one of those bottles of Furman whiskey, it's really good.
Ah,
It's really good. It's expensive, but it's good. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Tolos, when we come back, it's your chance to sound off like you got a pair. Truth is, you Tolos have been a little weak, a little soft over the last couple of weeks on the Tolo Takeover. I know you got gripes. Here's your chance to air them. 844-FAN-PHONE when we come back. Have you got grievances, gripes? Do you have a bone to pick? Is there something you have got to get off of your chest? This is your chance, Tolos. 844-FAN phone. 844-326-3663. The invitation is open. The gauntlet has been laid. Do you have what it takes to call into the show and have your voice be heard live on these airwaves? It is the Tolo Takeover. We do it every single Thursday at 5 o'clock. You call in and say what you need to say about whatever it is you need to get off your chest. Here's your chance. Tom in Somerville, he's in another category when it comes to the Tolo Takeover. Rick, I think he's on another planet. I don't even know what Rick is up to.
Is Rick still alive, by the way?
Who knows, man?
You know,
with him?
I'm thinking today's what, Thursday. We have not heard from Rick this week.
He could have been kidnapped, or he could have just made $1 million at the casino, and we'll never hear from him again.
First of all, if he was kidnapped, they'd send him back. Second of all, if he got rich at the casino, I do think Rick would call and brag about it. So I don't know. You and I were off last week. So we didn't hear. I'm telling you, it's been 2 to 3, maybe 3 to 4 weeks since we've heard from Rick and let's just do an welfare check, right? Somebody put out an APB on Rick and Greer. See if he's still alive. That's all we care about.
I just sent the John Gruden video to my wife, who's a Furman alum, and she said, "Who is this man, and why does he know so much about Furman?"
Who is John Gruden?
Who is John Gruden?
Gosh.
Maybe he doesn't even know. He's like, I am an evolution. I am always changing. Eric Hines, where you at? 844-326-3663. Let's go to the phone lines and let JD show how it's done. Welcome to the show, JD. What do you want to say?
Oh, my goodness. Well, first of all, thank you for taking my call, because if you call Diesel and Cole, the first thing you have to say is thank you for taking my call. And if y'all didn't know, now you know.
There you go. You're off to a good start, JD.
Second thing.
Wait, turn the radio down. We hear ourselves.
Oh, my bad.
Rookie move.
I thought I had.
Rookie move.
Yeah, golly. Yeah, rookie move. Rookie move. Hey, I stay making rookie moves because I am a rookie. All right? And if you don't like it, then now you like it. And if you don't know, now you know. That's the whole thing of this Tolo takeover from JD. Ashley, that is a great question. Why does John Gruden know so much about SoCon Furman? Why does he know so much about him? Because you know what, Tolos? Y'all are slack. You need to know more about Southern Conference and Furman and Wofford and Western Carolina and East Tennessee State and Chattanooga, because you know what? A lot of these teams, when this whole NIL and transfer portal stuff just gets out of control, you can talk to fantastic people like I just did in Charlie Browder, East Tennessee State tight end. Yes, he transferred from Tennessee and UCF, so he's done the transfer portal thing. And so I just had a fantastic conversation with him. But you got to understand.
At the gas station?
What's your point?
My point is that I had a great conversation with him on my show a minute ago. Sorry, I wasn't trying to plug myself. But
that's a violation right there, JD.
And it's not
that is a violation, JD. Calling in saying, "Hey, I want to plug about my show." I'm not trying to plug my show, but I'm going to tell you in detail what I just did on my show.
And the rain outside's not wet either, is it, JD?
No, I'm relatively dry right now. But I'm just saying that a lot more respect needs to be paid from these people here in Greenville and Spartanburg to these local schools. Listen, if you're sick of NIL, if you're sick of the transfer portal, if you're sick of the NCAA not granting people eligibility, there are a lot of interesting and entertaining players that are available for you to pay attention to at these other schools.
Hey, real quick before you go, do you want to respond to some Tolo on Tolo violence, JD?
Of course, always.
John Dog texts the show on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line and says, JD gives me a headache.
Yeah, well, hey, they make a thing for that, and it's called ibuprofen. Or my guess is, John Dog, you might just be deaf and should probably turn your speakers down a little bit. Or, John Dog, you just don't know ball.
Wow. Went there.
All right.
Thanks,
And
JD.
DB says, geez, JD.
Yeah. That's thanks for the call, JD. 844-326-3663. I did like Eric Hines. He said on the text line, D. They say, "Yeah, you calling us a week?
Yeah.
They call it. Yeah, we're calling.
Yeah,
Eric,
we're calling you
You're an
weak.
Eagles fan, by the way.
When was the last time Eric Hines picked up the phone, showed the fact that he's got a couple of jabronis, if he does or not, and actually called the radio station? See, I think it's a product of the generation, Cole. There's a lot of people who are too afraid to pick up the phone.
Are you calling
and call.
Eric Hines
I'm
out?
calling him afraid. I'm calling him scared. I'm calling you yellow.
Oh, that's good stuff. I do want to report, Diesel, in this very segment, in this Tolo takeover, while we converse here. By the way, phone line's still open, 844-326-3663. I do want to report that I did do my homework last night. You
On
know,
the Furman Paladins in the Southern Conference?
No. You know, you're not really good at doing homework most of my life, but I did last night. And you told those out there yesterday. What was it, a 5 o'clock segment, or some point during the show we talked about TV shows, right?
Yeah.
And there were, let me look here, there were 3 or 4 shows: Waterfront, Bosch and Bosch, Brothers, Son, and Bloodline, that the Tolos recommended me watch. I started Waterfront last night.
Mm-hmm.
Waterfront's the big one that everybody's raving about. They're saying it's a comparison between Ozark and all these other shows out there, which, by the way, comparing a show to Ozark might not be. Ozark's kind of at the top of the list for me. So it's tough to compare a show to Ozark. But Waterfront, Diesel, if you do want to take the Tolos up on it, watch 2 episodes. They seem short, so it's pretty easy to crank 2 or 3 out in a night. But I think you'd like it. It's not Ozark. Waterfront's not Ozark, but I did enjoy it. It was not like the greatest thing I've ever watched in the world, but I thought it was a pretty good show. I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to tell you what it was about. I'll just say it's pretty good.
What's your threshold for deciding to stay with the show or being out?
If it's
1 episode, 2 episodes,
yeah.
I give it 20 minutes.
I know.
You got 20 minutes to hook me.
I'll tell you this, man. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a good point, or a good question, because to that question, I couldn't do Yellowstone. I couldn't do it. Yellowstone was just so slow off the bat for me. I couldn't do it. Never watched it. So to answer your question, it's got to be the first episode. I need a hook.
I give them 20 minutes. If you can't get me in 20 minutes, that's what my wife and I say. We pick a movie that, like, we liked it, an actor that's in it. We've heard of the premise, whatever it may be. We're like, well, let's give it the old 20-minute try. If it's good, we'll stay with it. Waterfront starts slow, but it gets better. That's what everybody says about every show, though, right?
And I don't think it's necessarily that it started. Oh, texter. Oh, I didn't see that text from the 554. Like, it's intriguing, the storyline of Waterfront, Diesel. If you do watch it, the storyline itself is intriguing. It does start a little slow, and you're maybe not slow, but just I'm a guy, Diesel, when it comes to shows and movies. I like action. I like people getting killed. I like their face getting ripped off. I like gunshots. I like all of it. I don't like Law and Order because it's paperwork and you're talking. You know what I mean? I want the gunshots. I want to hear I want to see all of the rated R. You know, I want to see it. I want to see the gunshots.
Texter says, crank out what?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you'd been watching the stream, Texter, you would have seen me laugh.
Did you?
When Cole says, you can crank out one or two a night.
Did you?
Another texter says Yellowstone is amazing. I wouldn't say it's amazing.
Yeah,
it was all right.
It
was all right. By the end of it, I wanted it to be over. By was it?
That's
7
not
seasons?
good.
It's like 7 seasons. By the end of season 5, I was like, that's enough, guys. Come on, we gotta move on here. We gotta finish this thing off.
Speaking of cranking them out, that scene,
And they wouldn't have ended it if there hadn't been a contract dispute between Kevin Costner and the show.
Thank God for the contract dispute.
I
got tired of seeing people post on Facebook about it. I didn't even watch it, but one episode, maybe 2 episodes.
There was good elements of it. They could have condensed that whole thing down into 3 seasons, and it would have been a much, much better show. It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Still waiting on you, Eric Hines, to call in. Let's see. Another texter here says, just a question for JD. Is Dewey his co-host on his show? Ooh.
Tolo and Tolo.
Tolo, though, didn't give their name. I got a conspiracy theory for you here today, Cole.
I like a good conspiracy. I really do like conspiracy theories.
It kind of goes back to what we talked about in the first segment of the show, the article that Pat Forty posted up on Yahoo. I think that the Power 5 conference leaders who want to break away from the other conferences just don't feel like the time is right. They don't have the stones to do it. So I think what they're trying to do, even though they need the G5s and the FCSs and the lower end of the Power 5 to get easy wins, they're not quite ready to break away from that yet. So I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to position everything
What's your name?
so that it benefits them. They get more money, they get more exposure, they get more power, they get more prestige. And they're waiting for those smaller conferences in school to say, well, screw you. If you're not going to pay us what we're due for being on your field or for scheduling a game, then we're just not going to schedule anymore at all, right? So I think they're hoping that the smaller schools get so mad at being screwed over that they take their ball and go play somewhere else, which is what the Power 5 conferences have always wanted to do anyway, but they were afraid to actually do it.
Have their own
Yeah.
system, right? Their own league, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a terrible conspiracy theory. I really don't. It's interesting. I don't hate it. I think it could be possible.
Texter says, Diesel, with your sense of humor, you have to watch Stick with Owen Wilson. I've seen the previews for it. It looks good. It's like a golf version of Ted Lasso.
Oh.
Kind of the golf Ted Lasso. Like a guy that was supposed to be great. This is where it kind of deviates from Ted Lasso just a little bit. An like up-and-coming prodigy golfer, for whatever reason, it goes awry for him, and then he notices the next prodigy and wants to help bring him up through the game.
I got you.
I'm really interested in watching it, but I didn't know that it was released yet. I'm gonna go find it.
I'm gonna crank out a few more of Waterfront tonight, and then I might switch over and try Bloodline.
Yep.
Tom in Somerville suggested that, so I might try it.
I sometimes I take my time on watching sports related TV shows. Not talking about documentaries. Well, them too, but this is a drama, comedy, dramedy. I sometimes stay away from those just because it's like, man, we're in sports mode all the time. Sometimes I just want to take an hour away from sports and watch people blow stuff up.
I'll tell you this. I agree with you there. I don't even watch a ton of sports like shows and documentaries. I'm just not a big fan. Like, I love sports, but for
it's
whatever
hard.
reason,
There's so much of them.
There's a lot, and I don't know, man. I do want to ask, though, before we get to the phone lines, thoughts on doing a revisit to The Last Dance, sports related, because it's been like 5 years since we all watched. It was COVID since we watched Last Dance.
Well, if we're doing that, we might as well rewatch Tiger King too, because that was during COVID.
Is that guy is he still in jail? I think so.
I think so, yeah.
I think so. Tolos, if you did or did not watch Last Dance, I thought about revisiting it. We could do it together. I don't know. It's been 5 years since I last watched it.
Yes, he is still in prison. He is serving a 21-year sentence for attempting to hire a hitman to kill Carol Baskin.
Speaking of Carol Baskins, let's go back to the phone lines. Dan B, what's up, Dan?
Transition.
Hey, wow. Okay.
What's your name?
The Carol Baskin of upstate callers.
Yeah,
Dan
what?
B.
Sorry, I don't know. I'm sorry, Dan. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Sorry.
Yeah, but unlike JD, is always thanking you guys for answering his phone call. I'm just happy to grace you guys with my presence on the takeover. So
thank you for calling.
Yeah.
Cole, thank you for taking his call.
No, I don't really have a whole lot other than, are you guys aware that there's a potential for iRacing NASCAR 2025 that's supposed to come out this fall?
No,
is there anything about that video game?
No, it's iRacing. Is that what you call it?
Well, iRacing, which is a whole section of video gaming industry where that's how some people get their start in racing these days.
Right.
It's where you have your high-end setups.
Like full simulator in your home kind of thing.
Full simulator in your home kind of thing.
So this new game, it would require a simulator in your home, or you could play it on?
No, they're going to have consoles and just
Gotcha.
and on computer. But yeah, it's meant for the console community because they haven't had a NASCAR game since 21, and supposedly some of the drivers played it this week, and some, thoughts and whatnot were given on the podcast, and supposedly it's pretty dang good. It's pretty realistic from what we hear. My only issue is kind of the point why I'm bringing it up is it's going to be released in the fall. That's like giving us Madden or NCAA, 1 week before the playoffs start.
Yeah.
Like, why are you giving us this game to play a simulated, season of your driver, or you make your own character, I assume, but you're giving the game to us in the fall, which then next year we're not going to get the next iteration of it until the next fall. Like, I don't know. We'll find out. It just seems kind of odd in the timing.
So, Dan, are you going to pitch Just Jess to allow for her to allow you to turn a room in your home into your NASCAR iRacing simulator room?
How much do those cost, by the way?
I would love to.
Are those expensive? I mean, what of it? 10,
A
20,000?
video game or
No.
for the whole setup? I would imagine at least that. I mean, a couple thousand for the good seat, and then for the controllers, and then if you go, I've seen some crazy monitors that almost wrap around 90 degrees in front of you.
I have to.
Or you can do like the 5-monitor system where you got, you know what I mean? You got
to your
two in
point,
front of
though,
you.
Dan, to your point, a lot of drivers in this modern era grew up kind of learning on that, and that's – I'll tell you this.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It'd be a killer business idea if a local business in a big city had one of those in there, like at a bar. And I'd love to do it. I'd love to try it.
Yeah, no, I agree. That would be a pretty cool thing to have as a local establishment to draw people in.
Let's do it.
And
It's a business
pay
idea.
$10 an hour or whatever
To do it.
to mess around.
Yeah.
You got a bar?
No, we can work on that, though. Diesel might.
We can find one. We can find one that'll let us set it up. We just need a corner. That's it.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Tom in Somerville. We've got time. We've got room for one more, maybe two more. Tom, what's up?
Hey, guys. Well, after what y'all just talked about, I got a little marketing slogan for it. So if you had it in the bar, it's simple. You say, want to drive drunk? Come check out our new bar. And then when you get there, you'll have the whole setup. So for people that make dumb decisions, instead of driving on the real road, you just go to the bar and play the video game.
Oh, my God.
So Tom, I just looked this up, and Cole asked the question, what is a high-end e-racing or iRacing simulator setup cost? And I found this one online. I'm going to let you both take a guess. Who's going to be the closest?
Like the full
this
setup?
You're sitting in a rig that kind of looks like a little go-kart, right? So you're sitting in a racing chair, you got the steering wheel in front of you, and this has what looks like 3 large wraparound monitors that kind of encompass your full 180-degree view.
Is this like top of the line?
I don't know if it's top of the line, but it's the most expensive one that I'm looking at
I'm gonna
right
say
now.
I'm gonna be way off, Tom. I'm gonna go 10 grand. Tom, what do you say?
I'm going to say 28,000.
And Tom is just about right on the money because this
What?
ESR3 Pro Racing Motion Simulator is listed at $29,998.
That's unbelievable.
That's crazy.
30 grand.
And there's rigs. I take that back. That's not even the most expensive one. There's one now listed here that has like a full simulator where the chair articulates and moves as you drive.
See, that'd be fun. Man.
This one, I can't believe this is real. It's listed at $59,000.
You can go buy a real car and race it yourself for that.
That's true.
You can go
Tell
to the
'em,
local.
Tom.
You can enter in at the local track for that.
But the thing that got me curious today, I wanted to call and ask, and y'all may have seen it, the committee, whichever one of the 1,000 committees there are with NCAA now, they did not make a decision on expanding the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
So I think we can all celebrate a win today.
We talked about
There
that
you
at
go.
3, by the way, Tom.
Oh, you did. Sorry, I was working, couldn't listen.
That's
Well,
fine.
we didn't know that they chose not to make a decision.
That's right. My
That's
fault,
news.
Tom. My
That
fault.
is breaking news.
We talked about what they would do. Diesel's right. My apologies.
Yeah, no decision. The other thing, he may have called earlier. If he did, I missed it. But I missed Dewey. Where is Dewey? Is he still on suspension? Because
No.
we need him back.
It's been lifted.
You could have our Dewey promote the video game at the bar. There you go. Hey, call Dan B back. Tell him to get Dewey into the bar. He can promote the iRacing, and there you have it. You'd have people lined up out the door.
Tom-
I'd go just to see Dewey.
Tom, what was the show yesterday you told me to watch?
Bloodline.
A texter on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line 7 minutes ago. This is Lefty Tiger. Lefty Tiger says, stay away from Bloodline. Worst ending in Netflix library. Is that true?
It's controversial, yes, but it's a good show. It's a good show to watch.
I don't like a bad ending, though.
Well,
bad ending is relative. You know, bad for
Yeah,
one
it's
person is great for another.
Controversial. Hey, you're
hey.
a Clemson fan. You probably like bad endings.
Oh, wow.
Last year's game was a bad ending for you.
Shots fired there.
Tom, was this you that texted in a while ago and said that Garrett Riley is not going to get a Power 4 job because they've only scored one offensive touchdown on South Carolina under him?
That was not me.
Oh.
That was not me.
Well, put that one in the holster. You can have it for later.
Thanks, Tom.
Oh. Hey, one more thing.
Okay.
Diesel, y'all might be getting a new Sun Belt Conference member. You see Ohio's trying to leave the MAC.
Yeah.
Come play football with App State.
Texas State is headed to the Pac-12. People don't realize Texas State is like 40,000 students. It's huge.
Yeah.
So Texas State's going to the Pac-12. Apparently, Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky don't have the votes to get in. I guess Ohio, the Bobcats, are in now.
Good luck. They're pretty good.
We have one more question for you here. A texter wants to know, are Tom and Dewey the same person? Can you confirm or deny? Oh, he's gone.
Oh, he left?
No. Oh, that fuels the fire. That fuels the conspiracy.
Gosh.
He hung up on that question.
And I didn't end the call either.
Because I wanted to hear if we could get a out of Tom.
I don't know, man. That's interesting. Tom in Somerville always appreciate the phone call, even with a good smack talk there. Is Ohio that good? Have they been,
Ohio's been a solid program for the last, 20 years.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
I'm going to look up and
Ohio
see.
joining the Sun Belt. How about that?
Bobcats football records last 10 seasons.
We'll
Are
take it on
they
the
any
other
good?
side.
Yeah, we'll get to that next.
Tom did let us know that it was not intentional, that he did not hang up on purpose, that he lost the call. He said some bad storms in Somerville and some bad storms in the upstate as well today, Tolos. Hope you have stayed safe this afternoon. It's been pretty rough here for the past couple hours. So anytime there's storms and stuff like that, let us know if there's something that other Tolos out there in the upstate should know about on the phone lines at 844, text line 844-326-3663. Stay safe out there. Diesel, in 2 weeks from today, you and I will be at the ACC kickoff.
Yeah, we will.
In Charlotte, North Carolina. All eyes are on Charlotte as today. Big news. The ACC has announced the 2025 kickoff attendees. Let's run through those for the Tolos out there. If you're a fan of one of these ACC schools, you might hear some of your favorite players who will be in Charlotte. And guess what? You might hear some of those players right here on the Fan Upstate. The Rob Brown Show will be there as well. Starting on Tuesday, July the 22nd, Diesel, let's get California out of the way, right? Get those guys in and out, send them back to California as head coach Justin Wilcox brings Devin Brown, Aiden Kana, Jaron Kaway, I'm not going to pronounce his last name, and Cade Uvalve, a junior linebacker, out of California. Have you heard of any of those names before?
Negative.
Negative.
I haven't.
I'm with you on that. But nonetheless,
I try to avoid news about California as much as I can.
Still relatively new to the conference, right? Cal making their appearance.
They're never going to fit in, though.
They're never going to fit in. Never. They shouldn't be in the conference to begin with.
Go to the Big 12 or go back to the Pac-12.
Also on Tuesday, Miami. For those miserable people out there that do pull for Miami, your head coach Mario Cristobal Diesel will be bringing Carson Beck. How about that? Redshirt senior quarterback out of Jacksonville.
He's going to walk into ACC Media Day and be like, where is everybody?
I know. What's going on?
Because he's used to SEC Media Day.
Wesley Basanti, Francis. Francis and
You're a
and
brave
Akeem.
man taking on all these
I'm
name
not doing it.
pronunciations.
Why are we sending guys to ACC Media Day that we can't pronounce their name? So Francis and Akeem, they'll both be there from Miami. The name that you know, though, is Carson Beck. How about SMU, Diesel? Who are they bringing? Head coach Rhett Lashley, a really good year last year. Here's one, though, all kidding aside, we are excited about Carson Beck, right? He'll be a big name, one of the biggest names there. Also, Kevin Jennings. SMU bringing Kevin Jennings, redshirt junior quarterback. Mm-hmm. Really good season last year. SMU, obviously, we know what they did, making it to the conference championship.
Awful first half of that game. Great second half.
Alex Kilgore and Logan Parr also in attendance. All of the attendees from SMU that will be at the ACC kickoff, Diesel. Guess what state they're from? SMU, state of Texas. They're all local boys. So we'll have SMU there on Tuesday. The other two on Tuesday, Stanford. Frank Wright, that's right. Did we just say that? Frank Wright, the head coach at Stanford. People forget that Frank Wright made his way from the NFL to the college ranks and is now at Stanford. Virginia, Tony Elliott, former Tiger. Might be some intrigue around that. He is bringing 3 defensive players, including not including the one quarterback, Chandler Morris.
Can Stanford bring Andrew Luck with him? He's a GM of the football program, you know.
They should bring him.
Yeah.
And they need him because nobody else knows anything.
Imagine being Frank Reich and your boss is like 30 years younger than you.
Yeah, that's true. So on Tuesday, Diesel, next week, you and I won't be there on Tuesday, and for this reason, you have Cal, Miami, SMU, Stanford, and Virginia. So some good names. Like if we were there, we'd want Carson back. We'd want Kevin Jennings, right? Really good players from last year. We all are anticipating what Carson Beck will do this season. On Wednesday in Charlotte at ACC Media Days, cranks up a little bit. How about Wednesday? Florida State, Mike Norvell, bringing Tommy Castellanos, the senior quarterback from Waycross, Georgia. Also Darrell Jackson, Richie Leonard, and Earl Little Jr., a redshirt junior out of Fort Lauderdale. Any anticipation in your mind for you and I of Florida State being there just off of the
There should be.
horrible season they had last year?
Yeah, well, there's no way to go it up, right? I mean, they have to improve. They have to get better. Look, Florida State's still a brand. Mike Norvell still has some star power left to his name, even though his Florida State tenure has not gone consistently the way that we expected that it would.
No.
Now, one great season, yeah, but after that, it's been a little iffy.
It's been iffy. So I think I am intrigued by that with Florida State in 2025. Bless you, by the way, at ACC kickoff. Also in attendance on Wednesday, Georgia Tech, Brent Key. You and I talked to him last year. And Haynes King, he had a big year. He's a redshirt senior returning out of Longview, Texas. Diesel, I am a little bit interested to see what step Georgia Tech takes in 2025 under Brent Key. They surprised some people last year.
Take a wild guess. How old is Haynes King?
Wild guess.
Feels like he's been in college
I'm
football
going to
forever.
guess 22.
He's 24.
Wow.
He's 24.
He's
the
not-
same age
he's-
that Michael Penix Jr. was when he got drafted into the NFL.
So he's been there a while.
So he'll be 25 by the time
Wow.
he gets drafted.
How about
His
that?
birthday, January 9th. So he will be 25
Ooh.
by the time the draft rolls around.
Also on Wednesday, Louisville, Jeff Brahms bringing his guys. Quarterback, let's see, is he bringing the quarterback? Yes, he is. Miller Moss. Do you remember that name? Former USC Trojan Miller Moss. That's a big name right there. Wednesday's going to be a lot of fun. Also, Pittsburgh. Also going to be in attendance. Fran Brown bringing his orange. And Ricky Collins, the quarterback out of Baton Rouge on Wednesday. And last one, Jake Dickert bringing his Wake Forest Demon Deacons on Wednesday. On Thursday, the last day of the event, Diesel, you have Boston College, Bill O'Brien bringing some guys, including not his quarterback. Clemson's Dabo Sweeney on Thursday bringing.
I hope we get a chance, by the way, to interview Bill O'Brien. 'Cause
That'd be fun,
He
wouldn't
was
it?
sitting across from us last year on Radio Row. He was doing another sports talk show, a podcast out of the Triangle area of North Carolina. And I went back and listened to that interview after the fact because they were like yucking it up, having a great time. And Bill's a fantastic interview. Fantastic interview. I'd love to get him on.
Yeah, you would think a guy that pedigree, right, who's been in the NFL, and now I'm agreeing with you there. I'd like to interview Bill O'Brien. How about Clemson on Thursday at ACC Media Days in 2 weeks, Diesel? 2 weeks from today, actually. Head coach Dabo Sweeney bringing the senior quarterback, Cade Klubnik, TJ Parker, Antonio Williams, and Peter Woods. Manny Diaz from Duke bringing his 4 players, including quarterback redshirt sophomore Darian Mensah. 2 quarterbacks left Duke's roster during the offseason, so we'll see. Question marks around Darian Mensah at Duke. You ever heard of this guy? North Carolina head coach. Let me zoom in here. Bill Belichick. That's it. You ever heard of him? Bill
Checks
Belichick.
notes, Super Bowl winning head coach, widely considered one of the greatest of all time, but there is an asterisk next to his name. Could have been all Tom Brady.
Yeah, and guess who he's bringing? Gio Lopez.
Gio Lopez.
Quarterback out of
Yeah.
Madison, Alabama. NC State
Watched
also.
him tear up the Sun Belt last year.
Yeah, it's good. NC State, Dave Doran. I don't know why I put the O there. Dave Doran bringing sophomore C.J. Bailey out of Miami, Florida, as well as 3 other guys. And Virginia Tech, lastly, on Thursday, Brent Pry is bringing 4 players as well. Linebacker, defensive lineman, wide receiver, and quarterback Kyron Drones out of Houston, Texas. So, Diesel, that's the lineup. That's who's going to be in attendance in Charlotte 2 weeks from this week. Again, 2 weeks from today, Clemson will be in attendance. You and I will be there on Wednesday and Thursday broadcasting live. I am excited this year. We were excited last year because it was our first one. But this year, adding Bill Belichick, adding Carson Beck, I do believe ACC Media Days will be a little bit better in 2025.
It got a bump. Just hope that the folks in the ACC office realize that they've got a bump and they blow this thing up into be a bigger deal. We've gone to ACC Media Days. It can feel very muted, right? I mean, it feels like by the time we're there doing radio, most of the stuff is over with for the day. We'll be there obviously earlier on Wednesday and on Thursday to get a lot more of these interviews and such. But it doesn't feel like they go all out. You know, you see SEC media days and it's a circus. It is. There are throngs of people. Fans don't attend ACC media days. Fans attend SEC media days.
That's a big part. I'm sure that's a big part.
To Tom's point, Tom called in about Ohio being apparently a candidate to join the Sun Belt Conference. We asked, the question is, how are they any good? Is Ohio any good? 4 seasons now with Tim Albin, new head coach. First year is tough, but obviously you take over a bad situation.
Sure.
Since then, he's only gone 31-10.
That's not a bad
31-10.
record, is it?
No, so it's
Not
a little
bad.
it's a little misleading to say they're 72-50 over the past 10 seasons. They are 31-10 over the last 3. That's 3
And who's the
10
coach
plus
there
win
again?
seasons. His name is Tim Albin, Albin. Tim
I'll tell you
Albin.
what, man, that's an impressive record at a school like
Yeah,
that.
and he's 3-0 in bowl games in his tenure there
Tim
at Ohio.
Albin.
Yep.
How about that?
He'll be hired away by somebody. That is
Wow.
for sure. When we come back, Cole, we'll take our whip around the sports world. We do it every day. We call it our Daily Wires.
It's Wire to Wire with Cole, Bryson, and Diesel on the Fan Upstate.
We dive deep on the biggest stories throughout the show, but sometimes there's little stories that are just worth mentioning, and we hit them all at once in a segment we call our Daily Wires. Here's the buzz happening around the sports world. The Atlanta Braves are turning it around, Cole.
Yeah, right.
They got the Game 2 win yesterday against the A's. 9-2 was the final score. Game 3 of the series is tonight. 9:05 Eastern first pitch. Spencer Strider on the mound facing J.P. Sears.
You know what? If the Braves, I'll tell you this, with Spencer Strider on the mound tonight, if the Braves don't take 2 of 3, I'll not watch another bit of Braves baseball all season.
Really? Are
Yeah.
you committing to that?
I watched last night. Yeah, I'm
Committed.
committed to it. Yeah,
Okay.
we've got Spencer Strider on the mound tonight, going against a old store that used to be around. JP's, is anybody shop there anymore? JP Sears? Wasn't that the
Is
name
that a
of
merger
store?
between J.C. Penney and Sears?
I don't know, maybe, but come on. I mean, the Braves, if they lose tonight, I'm done.
The Hub City Spartanburgers have pulled back to even 500 ball at 41-41 after a 2-1 win on the road last night against Rome. Congratulations to the Spartan Burgers. John Taylor blasted a solo home run. Anthony Gutierrez worked his way around the bases and scored on a wild pitch. So getting it done in a low-scoring affair.
That's a long
did
way.
the Burgers.
Long way to go to play baseball.
Is it?
All the way to Rome?
All the way to Rome.
I'm kidding, I'm kidding. I know Rome,
They flew
Georgia.
all the way there. I'm surprised their arms weren't too tired to throw around.
I know.
Frank Layden, the sharp-witted former coach who led the Utah Jazz to the playoffs for the first time, has unfortunately passed away at the age of 93.
Hate that.
The NFL Players Association Executive Director Lloyd Howell Jr. is working as a paid part-time consultant for the Carlyle Group, one of a select group of league-approved private equity firms now seeking minority ownership in NFL franchises. Howell joined the firm in March of 2023, 3 months before the NFLPA hired him to be the players' chief representative in relations with the league. That's interesting, Cole. A guy with the Players Association trying to buy teams.
Money, baby. Money
I like
speaks.
it.
Money talks.
These players have a lot of money. If they all chose to band together, they could buy probably significant chunks, maybe not majority stake. Maybe they could, maybe they couldn't, in some of these teams. And then it would be a player-owned team. Phoenix Suns superstar Devin Booker agreed to a new 2-year, $145 million max contract extension through the 2029-2030 season, the highest annual extension salary in NBA history.
D-Book getting it done, man. That's impressive. He's a good player. Suns have underachieved, though, in the past couple of years. But, I mean, you talk about a guy like Devin Booker. It's hard to say he doesn't deserve an extension.
Wouldn't you just
really
say
good.
that the Suns have underachieved their entire franchise history?
Yeah, pretty much.
Colorado coach Deion Sanders is advocating for a salary cap in college football, noting that it would help even out the competitive landscape in a sport that's already becoming more like the NFL. We had a great conversation about that earlier today.
Yep, sure did. And I think for the most part, I agree with Deion that there is some sort, again, the old Diamond Rio song, right? Meet in the middle. I think we need to somehow meet in the middle on this. Not all the way to the right, not all the way to the left, but let's meet in the middle and get some structure on this thing. I'd like a cap.
In the words of Billy Gibbons of ZZ Top, playing the role of the devil in this Nickelback song, how you gonna do it?
Yeah.
Like, you want all these things, that's great. How you gonna do it?
I'm going to elect
How you
Deion.
gonna
I
get
like
it?
Deion. I'm a Deion guy.
Gavin McKenna, the projected number 1 pick of the 2026 NHL draft, is committing to Penn State University. McKenna, who is 17, is considered the highest profile recruit in NCAA hockey history. And I guarantee you not one of our Tolos has ever heard his name before.
Who?
Yeah, exactly. The highest rated. The biggest deal. Maybe, look, do people up north, we have a lot of Tolos from Ohio. Help us out. Give us an answer on the text line. Do people up north take college hockey recruiting as seriously as we take college football recruiting here in the South?
I bet they do.
Reigning Hobie Baker Award winner Isaac Howard is a member of the Edmonton Oilers after he was traded Tuesday by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Scottish Open Round 1 has wrapped up, and the leader in the clubhouse, there's a 4-way tie between Nico Echevarria, Sepp Straka, Jake Knopp, and Victor Perez.
I've got the wrong one on TV, don't I?
You might have.
I don't even have the right
I
tournament
think you have
on.
the I think
Come
you have
on.
the wrong tournament. Victor Hovland is tied for 9th at 4 under, just scrolling down the list here. Scotty Scheffler is tied for 14th at 3 under with Ludwig Aberg. Let's see. Rory McIlroy has found himself in tied for 33rd place at 2 under par. Again, the leader is at 6 under in that tournament.
I'm excited. I'm keeping an eye on that, but I'm really ready for next week.
And last one for you here, Cole, real quick. Bobby Stroop, personal trainer to Patrick Mahomes, has responded to the Kansas City radio host Kevin Keatsman, calling Patrick Mahomes fat and an embarrassment by trying to fight him. Stroop posted on X, "Send me your location." Also saying, quote, "You obviously need attention. If you want to see what in shape is, go make it through a practice at St. Joe or run hurry-up offense scrambling back-to-back-to-back plays. You don't have a clue what it takes. It's not a look, it's performance."
Let's do it.
Stroop has been Mahomes' trainer since Patrick was 9.
I'm for it, man. Let's get him to fight. The radio show host versus the trainer. I am all for that. I'd love to see that. How about let's dive back into the conversation. Tom enlightened us on the NCAA men's expansion. They were in some meetings yesterday, and today we'll dive back into that next.